If you are enjoying the content that I put out, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications, and leave a comment or a like if you really enjoy it. Or even if you don't, leave one. Now, on to the podcast. All right, everybody. Welcome to the DPOAA podcast. My co-host for today is Dr. Dennis G. Patterson. How are you?
I'm doing good, Dave. How are you?
Thank you for deciding to do this. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
No, honestly, when you mentioned it to me, this was right down my alley, and I was excited to be a part of this. So thank you for having me today, and
of course,
hopefully it'll be worthwhile for people out there tuning in.
I definitely think they will. I definitely think they'll get something from it. So you are a doctor that is specialized on like neurological disorders and muscular issues, right? So what does that mean?
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you a quick background to I actually was always interested in sports growing up, and so when I went into medicine, I thought I would be a sports medicine doctor. And there's kind of several different routes to get there.
Okay.
And the way I ended up doing it was through a specialty called physical medicine and rehabilitation.
Oh, okay.
And that specializes that particular field of medicine specializes in kind of like neuromusculoskeletal disorders.
Okay.
So problems with bones, nerves, and muscles.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like non-surgical orthopedics.
Okay.
But the other way to think about it is I'm almost kind of like a primary care doctor for not the disabled, but in a roundabout way for the disabled. So, in my background or during residency, I treat patients with spinal cord injuries.
Oh, wow.
Traumatic brain injuries.
Okay.
Strokes, amputations. And then on top of that, we'd see some high-level athletes that had sports injuries that we'd see and treat. And then another part of it, we did a test called an EMG or a neurological test.
Yeah.
And so with my background, I've seen a wide variety of neurologic, injuries, muscle injuries, and skeletal injuries. And so my field kind of helps get it together. And then I realized that with that specialty, I could only do so much, and that there was a gap between what I could do and versus what some surgeons could do.
Okay.
And that's where my second specialty came in, was doing interventional pain management.
Oh, wow.
And so interventional pain management taught me how to do a lot of procedures to help these patients with these, neuromusculoskeletal injuries to hopefully help them avoid surgery.
Yeah.
And so, I'm board certified in both. So I've passed my boards back in 2007, and then I had to get recertified in 2017.
That's pretty intense.
Hopefully I don't have to take them any more past 2017, but I'm still young.
That's a lot of school.
Oh, it is a lot of schooling. Oh God, if you think about, going through undergrad,
school, guys.
right?
That's a lot of school.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort to do something like what you've done. It's not, I'm going to go to medical school and then they reach a certain level. No, you kind of like really pushed it.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't, you think about undergrad, right?
Yeah.
So you do high school, so that's through grade 12, and then you do 4 years usually for undergrad, maybe 5, depending on your course load. And then after that, I had to do 4 years of medical school, a year which is called an internship year, where you graduated from medical school, but you're a new doctor, but you have to cover the hospitals.
Okay.
And then after that, you go into your residency. My residency happened to be 3 years. And then
and that's not paid, right?
Well, it's after you graduate from medical school, you're paying to be there in medical school. But internship, you get paid. If you look at the hours I was working in the hospital, I think we figured it out at one point. I was getting paid like $2.18 an hour. So a lot of hours, very little pay.
That's a lot.
But then your residency, you get paid a little bit better. Your hours are better, but it's nothing like being a private practice doc. And then your fellowship, you get paid a little bit more, but nothing great. So if you really think about it, I did 4 years of med school, internship, 3 years of residency, 1 year of fellowship. Mm-hmm. So that is another 9 years after undergrad.
That's incredible to be in that kind of situation, to make it in your mind to be like, yeah, I'm going to go to school for like 9 years. It was medical stuff in your family. Did you have anybody else that went into the medical field?
No, honestly, like I did. Nobody in my family is in medicine. I was the first person to go to medical school and become a doctor, and I think it was just all my love for sports that honestly I can tell you the moment I kind of realized I was going to become a doctor was I was in high school. I was playing on the lacrosse team. I injured my rotator cuff, and about the same time I was in physical therapy.
Wow.
And while I was going through the steps of doing that, I really fell in love with it. And I was like, oh God, I want to be a physical therapist. That's actually what the first thing was.
Wow.
And I went home and talked to my dad about it. My dad is an accountant who has clients who ran doctor's offices. So 50% of his clients, were physicians and their private practices. And he had a couple of them that were the physiatrists or the physical medicine rehabilitation docs. And my dad said, well, son, why be the physical therapist when you can be the doctor, the physiatrist who sends the patients to the physical therapist? And at that point, I'd never really thought about it. And I was like, God, yeah, you're right, Dad. Why be a physical therapist when I can be a physician?
So that's kind of like a link right there in a way, because it's like you weren't directly involved, but he had, since he was an accountant, there was that thing. So it kind of in a not direct way, but indirect way, did that make you think after he said that? Did it make your brain go
it made me really think about that.
Okay, like this is the route that I want to go?
Yeah, so that kind of got me interested. And then there was another incident that happened about the same time. I was a senior in high school. I was in an AP biology class, and Dr. Alan Wuth was our physician. And one day I was messing around in class, talking in class, not
being a goofball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he called me out in the middle of class. Thought he would catch me, and he wanted me to describe what our reading the night before, which was about mRNA, tRNA, and how DNA is transcribed.
Yeah.
And I stopped, and to much to his surprise, I looked at him and I said, "Oh, what do you want to know?" And then I whipped it out. I went in like a 10-minute explanation, and I remember his jaw dropped. I think all my classmates around me's jaws dropped because they couldn't believe that I actually pulled it off. And he stopped and looked at me and he says, "Why, thank you, doctor. Thank you." And so a moment where I was supposed to probably get sent to the principal's office turned into like that. And after that, like I ended up winning AP biology. He called me doctor, and I thought that was kind of cool. And then, after that, I ended up winning AP biology student of the year. And he told me after I graduated from high school that come back and see him after I was a physician. And probably one of the greater stories is after I graduated from med school, I went back, I looked him up, I found his house in Denver, and I knocked on his door, and when he answered, I reminded him who I was, and I told him I was a doctor at that time, so that I graduated. And I thanked him for motivating me.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Story. I just had to check something really quick. So, we kind of went over why you wanted to start your own practice, right? You kind of talking to your dad, right? But what made you want to kind of because that's a big deal, right? It's not a small task to start that. So to people out there, there's steps in order to achieve what you want. If it's in any kind of field, it's kind of up to you what you guys want to do. But was it you had a lot more control and you didn't have not oversight, but I guess you didn't have people to answer above you, or what was it? Why?
Well, I can tell you a couple of things. So after you finish all your medical training, you've usually got a couple different opportunities. There's two routes you can be. Well, I guess there's three routes you can go. Number one, you can just become a clinical researcher, work in a laboratory the entire time. Yeah. Number two, you can work in academic medicine. So that's working for a larger institution like the Mayo Clinic, Stanford. Some of those names that you've heard. Yeah. The third thing is then to go into private practice. And private practice means that you're out in the real world. You set up your own shingle. So initially when I got out, I joined another private practice. Okay. I was actually their employee. Wow. And I thought I'd become a partner there. I think everybody, when they graduate and they take a job, they assume that eventually they'll work their way up the ladder and become a partner in the place. Yeah. And, but unfortunately, the statistics show that 81% of patients, or sorry, not patients, but physicians who have a private practice don't stay there after 2 years. It just doesn't work out. And I don't know if it's more personality conflicts or the reality sets in that you're somebody else's employee or you're not going to get a fair shake in the partnership.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how I saw my situation. Plus, on the back end, I was raised by a dad who ran his own business.
Yeah.
And he always talked about that the goal should be for me to run my own business and be in control of my life. So I think I had this mentality that, eventually I want to control what I do on a day-to-day basis. And then probably the third thing that kind of helped influence that is from the time I was 12 years old, I owned a lawn mowing business. And so I'd literally push...
I never knew that. That's interesting. A lawn mowing business.
So I'd push lawnmowers around the neighborhood. I'd mow people's lawns. When I turned 16, my parents bought me an old beat-up pickup truck. I had a 1966 Ford pickup truck. We put my brother and I and one of my friends, we'd put the equipment in the back and we'd drive. At the height of it, by the time I graduated from undergrad, I think I had 100 clients. Wow. We would mow all those lawns, take care of them. And so, running that business, I already kind of knew how to do my own marketing. I knew how to do my own billing. I had to do my own collecting. There was nothing worse than being a young kid and having to call like an adult and tell them that they haven't paid your lawn mowing bill. So do all those things, and then
so you were preparing yourself basically in a way.
So I already kind of knew how to run a business at a smaller level. Yeah. And so when I finished my medical training. And went out and joined another practice. I didn't have any business responsibilities, but after that didn't work out, the question was, do I go fulfill my own destiny, which I knew wanted to run my own business, or do I join another practice? And I decided hey, I can run my own business. So I opened my own doors, and honestly, running my medical practice is just like running my lawn mowing business. The concepts are the same, it's just at a little bigger level.
But there's a lot more, I would say, probably regulations, different things. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into a practice. I mean, you weren't in this big building at first.
No.
So you've slowly have grown, right? So was Sparks your first office, or was Reno your first office?
Reno was my first office. The other clinic that the other practice I joined initially, when I was their employee, I was out in Sparks, and then when I left that, then I opened my own Reno office, and then it kind of made a modular business model that I knew that I could start small, and just kind of make it bigger. If you do it kind of in a modular fashion, it's easy to kind of expand when needed. And so that's kind of what we did. Now we've got, a site here in Reno. We got the Sparks office, and we got took over another clinic just this past summer in Carson, Tahoe. So now we got three different clinics.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, it over time you kind of just build and build. We talked about how you went into pain management. What do you do that helps you deal with all the stress? Do you golf? Do you do what activities outside of this do you do to kind of? Because I would imagine it's not like you're sitting. You have a lot on your shoulders, correct? Yeah. You have a lot of people that work for you. You have a lot of weight, right?
Yeah, I've got about 50 employees that work for me. So one, I gotta make sure that I work hard to provide for them, and let them and their families have some income coming in so they can keep food on their table. Yeah. Two, I gotta work hard so I can keep food on my own family's table, and plus I got family responsibilities there. Yeah. Three, you're exactly right. I gotta run the business. And then four, I've got to see patients and make sure they're taken care of.
So there's a lot. So what do you do to help yourself de-stress? There's got to be something that you.
Oh, I'm naturally a very happy person, and so I would tell you that I just got to two key things. Okay. Number one is take enough time off. So make sure that when you're off, so you can recharge your battery. And then number two, the other thing that I do on a pretty much a daily basis is I exercise. And so at least 3 or 4 nights a week, I go to the gym. So probably after we finish this, I'll head over to the gym and lift weights for a good 45 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Other days when I'm not at the gym, I've joked that since the pandemic started, I've got the Peloton app on my phone. I haven't missed a Peloton workout in over 500 days.
Wow. That's incredible.
So since the pandemic started, I think I've got almost 1,600 workouts done under my belt. So it's almost about average 2 or 3 a day. Most of them are 10 to 15 minutes.
That's great. So that exercising is kind of your stress relief, right?
Yeah, that's the big one. And then going home and just being able to wind down, kind of clear your mind, and then show up the next day with a full battery. Because like I said, as I see patients during the day, I feel like I give them my energy to make them feel good. And a lot of patients in pain just don't feel good and they're not happy. And I take their negative energy. And so it's an energy transfer, multiple times throughout the day.
Well, I have to say that, like, for me, you were a huge part of my life in allowing me to, have more abilities to do things and have the ability to do this and not always think about, like, my spasms and all that pain and, like, just all the pain that I deal with. I was going to tell you, I had a sleep study done.
Yeah, recently?
And I don't know if you know this, but the human body, when it's at rest, if you're in pain, like the way I am, they saw signals going like uneasiness. My body was just like, it still hurts.
Yeah.
So it's like, even at rest, even at sleeping.
It happens at a subconscious level.
So it's like, it's like, that pain when you finally, I went from pain all day every day to like every once in a while during the day instead of boom boom boom. So I just want to let people know, like, it's so nice when you actually have the ability to have control over your body. You can do so much so much more in life, and I have to say, like, thank you for all the things that you've done for me in my life.
Hey, no problem. That's my job. Like I try to make a difference in people's lives. That's what I set out to do. And hopefully, I can impact enough people to make what I've done on a day in, day out basis worthwhile. And I feel like I have so far.
Now, when you're not here and you go to do trips or talks or speaking, like where do you speak and who do you speak to?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what you're referring to is that usually when I'm not running my clinic on the weekends, I've become a consultant for several companies within, what we call as industry. And so I have several companies. So let's give one as an example. It's Abbott Medical.
Okay.
It's a spinal cord stimulator company.
Yes.
I like their product. I think they've got good products and they provide a lot of patients with a lot of pain relief. And that's why I firmly believe that they're at the cutting edge, and I like the product. So a lot of times what I'll end up doing, so say in 2 weeks I'm going for them, I'll be in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
I go to their headquarters, and what they'll end up doing is they're going to fly in pain fellows from around the country.
Oh.
So they're physicians. They've graduated. They've either done a residency, typically in anesthesia or the physical medicine rehab.
Wow.
And now they're doing that 1 year extra training of pain fellowship. And they'll come for the weekend, and we'll do a course on teaching them about neuromodulation, whether it is their traditional dorsal column stimulator or a more specific one called the dorsal root ganglion stimulator. And usually when I'm there, my role is two things. One, I'll get in front of the classroom and I'll give a presentation, a slideshow on different techniques or about disease state or about the stimulator. And then the other part of it is I get in a cadaver lab, and they'll have cadavers there, and I'll teach these young physicians on how to do the procedure and implant the leads.
What's that like?
Oh, it's funny. You see a wide variety because these are young kids, and so
it's a cadaver. That's the human body's no longer there. Mind wise, like they're gone. Yeah. So, but I don't.
It's all covered up, so you really can't
but like
see
to imagine, like you're like they're dead. And you start
I think with us doing human anatomy though, in having to do some dissections ourselves, I think we've gotten to a point where I've never had to. You become so desensitized, you just don't even think about it anymore. But so when I go in there, I don't really see a cadaver. I see just a spine that I'm working on. And it's interesting to see just the wide variety of people's, hand-eye coordination and doing procedures. You see some really fellows that are really talented that you're like, wow, they're really good. You see some other ones that you're like, oh man,
I don't want them working on another human.
Yeah, so it's like you got to try to figure it out and take your time and try to give them the best pointers you can. People can improve over time, and that's what you hope.
But see, because that's funny how you talk about anatomy, and it's just like you guys just see, an just a body, right? You just see all the parts. For me, when I had my pump surgery, I'm in the room and I'm recovering, and the doctor needs to check out my scar and make sure everything is good. And I'm like, all these nurses are coming in and I have nothing on, and I'm like freaking out, going like, no, dude, I don't want you. Nope. And he's like, we see it all the time. I'm like, you don't understand right now. There's a bunch of like pretty girls that are just like coming in here, and you're in here and you're like this, and finally look at me and say, no. You touch that one more time. I'm like, all right, dude, I guess I got to just sit here, and I look up and I close my eyes. I'm like, but that's just funny how you say that. Because to me, it's like, I just,
No, and you've seen it in my back room. You've been on there, when we do procedures, a lot of, they get you on the table, you're kind of laying face down, and they kind of, shimmy down your jeans. And so you kind of see your backside. Yeah. And it's funny when I walk in, I'm not looking at that. I'm looking up at the screen to see where they've got the X-ray and what I got to do it, because I'm looking more at the anatomy.
But that's the difference between you and I. Is
Patients say it all the time. Like, you walk in and all you see is butts all day, and I'm like, I'm thinking, well, God, you're right. I could have seen 20 butts today, but I don't even see them as butts, because I'm looking at the
that's the big difference between a physician and a patient. Most patients, are a little timid.
Oh, totally. And I don't blame you.
So for me, I just found that really, really hilarious and quite funny. Well,
I even remember as a being a patient, back before I went to medical school, especially in high school, and you'd have to get your hernia checked, right? Yeah. And to play sports to get signed off. And I remember my primary care doctor would come in, and he always had like a student following him. and just like you were saying, it's usually some young pretty girl, and you're like 18, and you're like, is she gonna do the hernia check, or is he? And like I'd be sweating the entire time. So I totally know what you're talking about. It's uncomfortable.
You see it from just the doctor point of view, because you're like, look at this, and then this area, and you're like, boom, 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 and then you're like, you're out there, right? Yeah. You're done. Yeah. The patient's going like, bro, no.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just kind of funny. I think it's part of your medical training. You just become so desensitized.
Do you think that's what it is? Do you think going through medical school, is it at the very beginning that you guys kind of or is it? Does that?
I think in the human anatomy, I think they just ingrain you with, this is, be a professional. This is medical.
Yeah.
So you don't personalize anything. And honestly, like, I can tell you, you just get to a point where it just becomes second nature. You just don't think about it anymore. And we probably don't even really understand how desensitized we've become, because it's happened so gradually over a period of time that we don't even probably have as much of an understanding as others do around us. So
see, that's interesting. What do you think of like the new technology that's constantly coming out in the medical industry? Because when I was a kid, they told my parents, we can cut him from the top of the spine to the bottom of the spine and try to figure out something, and my parents were like, no. Yeah. Like, when did all this like big because
there's always something new, something different happening. I can't really talk about other fields of medicine, but I can talk about pain management. So pain management, when I first got into this field, was kind of the wild west, and what I mean by that is there wasn't a lot of evidence basis, so there wasn't a lot of medical studies to show. We knew what we did helped, but we didn't know how much it helped, and we didn't have research studies to back it up. And so that's why I said it was the wild, wild west. It was people just do whatever they felt was the right thing to do for the patients. And kind of what's happened is, insurance carriers, the government, and different people have been like, well, look, in order for us to improve this and pay for this treatment, we want to see proof that it's going to help. And so now, over the last decade, we've seen several things happen. One, we've seen a lot more research studies being done to prove what we do does help. But we've also seen a lot of innovation with a lot of the things we do. So what I did 10 years ago is probably a lot different than it is a lot different than what I do now, because I'm now doing procedures that I wasn't even trained at in my fellowship.
Wow.
And so
that's incredible.
And I'm telling you, probably 10 years from now, I'll be doing things that we're not even discussing today or know about.
Yeah.
And I'll probably be even doing less of the stuff that I see as standard of care now. Those will probably be even less then,
It just fascinates me how there's always, when new technology comes out, for example, Elon Musk on Joe Rogan, he kind of briefly went over these nanobots or something like that can help people with my condition and other medical conditions. Do you think that's a real possibility to have that in the body and it actually work? How close do you think?
I don't know if it's close to hitting the market, but I would say, anything is possible, right? It seems like we've seen things happen that we thought we'd never see in our lifetime. And just take the world in the last couple of years.
It's been crazy.
Prior to the pandemic, did you ever think that we'd have a situation where we'd be on lockdowns and all that?
No.
Neither did I. And hopefully we never see it again in our lifetime. But it's insane that, never say never. I think anything's possible. So
I just find it interesting that he's throwing out those ideas and stuff. And
he's a forward thinker.
Yeah, he's definitely is. He's into that whole industry. So let me ask you: have you heard of Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos?
Oh yeah, Theranos. That's an interesting thing.
I want to get your take on that, because I've seen the documentary and I've seen the actual movie and I've seen the show, and I'm fascinated that so many people were fascinated by her because she looked like Steve Jobs, right? She marketed herself a certain way. What do you think of her?
So I haven't seen the documentary, but I just know the situation that she basically she was a good actress and she put on a good show for people and got people to believe that her little machine could calculate their blood and give an instant result that they could treat.
Is that possible?
Well, I think she was showing people and doing all that. We thought it was, right? But what we found out is it was all smoke and mirrors and a way to get, defraud people of hundreds of millions of dollars. So
because she had no medical training of any kind.
That was my understanding. Yeah, she didn't.
So why would she?
She was basically an actress trying to get money out of people and trying to claim she had proprietary technology that nobody knew or understood.
And then Walgreens, and she was really getting it. And then at a certain point, that snapped her. Her whole story. She went from billions to just.
Well, I assume she probably believed in what she was promoting and thought that the scientists would eventually create it. So in the background, she'd eventually have it at the end, the product at the end. And it obviously in that sense, the science didn't evolve as fast as her thinking.
Well, wouldn't you think that somebody that actually had, if you had medical training, say you had medical training, you had a little bit of engineering background training, and you went to go to make a medical device and a company, I think personally that would help when you go to get investments rather than investments from people in the military, which she got. Investments from people that are not even in the medical field. She didn't, and even her professor that she had told her, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
There's no way this is going to work. And she's like, yes, it is. Yeah. And she just...
I think she honestly believed it. And I think she thought that eventually she'd have it while she was pulling the smoke and mirrors on people, but eventually it was all smoke.
So that whole thing is just it. To me, it's like she was just trying to medical device and trying to. I could see why she wanted to do it because her mom apparently didn't like getting blood testing, right?
Yeah.
So I could see that kind of idea spark in her head and kind of wanting to go towards that.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like it just. Her whole story is just, I'm just like, I can't believe she got as big as she did.
I don't know if you saw like her diary notes and like how she would schedule her day out.
No.
It's pretty intense. I mean, she had every minute of every day organized from the time she woke up until the time she went to bed. You should try to Google search that and look at it. But she was a pretty intense woman and pretty regimented. So it was interesting to see like the notes she took. And I think actually that's kind of what they're, my understanding is what sunk her. She tried to claim, like I didn't know, and they're like, well, somebody who takes this detailed of notes knows, or is this much control would know that what she's talking about. So
yeah, bad move on her part.
Right.
And that's a bad move on her part. When we talk about pain management and stuff, a couple of years ago, I was seeing documentaries about Florida and people going down to Florida. And the reason why we have a better tracking system now was because of that whole situation, because you could go down there, doctors would just give you like 2,000, 3,000 pills. And I'm thinking to myself, really? For one human? Yeah. So,
well, they probably weren't consuming them, Dave. They were probably selling them on the streets, going down there, getting them, and then leaving. There's stories that they would have buses, that people would come from other states. They would take buses, people on them. They'd drop them off. They'd go get the pills. They get back on the bus and then leave. So I don't know if they're taking them back and giving the pills to somebody else. I'm assuming since it was organized where they're on the same bus, that's what was happening.
I just find it fascinating that now we have where, like for my insurance, for example, I have CVS. Yeah. That's what I have. Yeah. And there's no boom over here, boom over here, boom over here. Do you think that all this tracking system and all the way things are now, it's a lot better?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's made it a lot safer.
Okay.
For one, if you've got an addiction to a pill problem, to medical pain pills, you're going to lie, cheat, and steal to get them, right? You're not going to be honest with your physician that like, I'm taking these for non-pharmaceutical or for non-medical reasons. I'm just taking these to get high. Yep. You're never going to admit that. And so, I think these systems have done three things. I think one, they've protected patients from themselves. Okay. I think two, they've protected or made our community safer. And then three, I think they've helped physicians protect their license.
Because wasn't there a Ford, we had like some...
Oh, God, we had a oxycodone ring that was exposed with a Ford dealership for a sting.
Ford dealership?
Yeah, they were selling oxycodone 30 milligram pills out of the trunk of a Ford vehicle there that was in the back of the lot,
That to me is like, it's like... It just like gives people a bad name that like actually want to help people like yourself, where you're running a practice where it's like, boom, here's my practice. I'm proud of it. This is how it's going to be. If you don't like it, that's tough.
Yeah.
Because there's a limit on things in life. Because you have to also, this is your life.
Yeah. And with that tracking system, that's kind of what's happened now is that when a patient comes into your office, you can already see if they filled pills from somebody else, and you can say, oh, you already got pills. Like, so one, you're protecting them from themselves. Two, the less, if they are not consuming them and they're using them to sell them on the streets, now you've protected your community because there's not extra pills out there. And then three, as a physician,
so these are like
heaven forbid you
blocks.
Do prescribe these pills and these patients are taking them, and you didn't see that another physician gave them a couple days before, and now they mix these pills, they potentially could overdose. And then your license on the line for being the last one to prescribe.
So what do you do if you have a patient that has been used to receiving, and like you would think that's crazy, but if they've been receiving that for so many years and they've been taking that many, right? what do you do at that point when they're used to another?
So you're saying if they came from another physician and they're on a lot higher doses than what I prescribe? So what I really just try to have clear expectations for the patient. So I'll go in and I'll tell them like, look, I want to help you with your pain, but I can't, in good morally or ethically prescribe what you're currently on. So I kind of bottom line it before I get the appointment started. I tell them, I'm willing to work with you and I'm willing to help you with your pain, but this is what I'm going to do today with your pain medications. I'm going to make these modifications and we're going to do this over time. If you're willing to work with me on that, then I'm willing to help you with your pain. If you tell me that there's no compromise here, this is what you want and this is what you're going to take only, and you'd be upset with that, then I tell you this isn't a fit. I'll just call your referring doctor right now and let them know that we can't see eye to eye on this and that they should send you to somewhere else for a second opinion. And honestly, I can tell you that that's kind of saved me a lot of time and effort. One, it saved me time in the fact that, I have a 45-minute new patient appointment. If I say that in the first 5 minutes and they're not interested, they can take off. Then I've got 40 minutes now to get other stuff done or get caught up on the day. And the patients usually leave, not upset. Because I'll give them their refund on their copay and just tell them best of luck. But say I sat through that for 45 minutes and then I tell them I'm going to do that and the patient's upset. They feel like I've wasted their time, the 45 minutes, and they're upset. And I feel like I've wasted my own time. And then two, they're disappointed that they didn't get what they wanted, and then they're more likely to go write a bad review. Where when I'm pretty upfront with the patient, I don't charge them and tell them,
that's
hey,
honesty.
And being honest with them up front. It seems like they're all right with it. I call the primary care; they seem to understand, and honestly, I've never seen a bad review.
I mean, it's better. It's better to do it that way.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
So, what is your intention? Like, what's down the road? Where do you see your practice in 5-10 years? Like, I know what we talked about, like devices and where we don't know what we could see, but what do you see? Like in for your practice, do you see growth? Where do you see growth? Do you see more in Carson, or do you see in Dayton, or where do you kind of?
I kind of see equal representation between the Greater Reno Tahoe area.
Okay.
And I think right now I'm pretty content with the Sparks, Reno, Carson clinics. I feel like that gives patients options and can come in from different parts. If you really think about it, we draw from probably 1 million people in this area. That could be as far north as Susanville, or or west Truckee, south. It could
So just basically maintaining what you got and making sure that you're meeting the needs of
the community
of the community and what you like Taylor Swift.
Oh, I love Taylor Swift. Yeah.
It's
my favorite.
What?
How did this get started?
What?
It wasn't when she was in country. It was like her 1989 album came out and
Tears on a Guitar or something. Was that the one?
No, it wasn't that. It was Shake It Off. And I don't know what it was about that song, but it just kind of got me hooked. I thought it was kind of catchy and now it's a joke.
I just find it funny. I like her too. I like Taylor Swift a lot. I work out with her music and I just found it funny the first time I came in and somebody was like, yeah, he likes Taylor Swift. And I'm like, what?
Isn't that kind of weird? Yeah. Before Taylor was since I loved U2 or I don't know if you know the Killers, Las Vegas. Them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of alternative, and so Taylor Swift's kind of more pop. So it's kind of funny that I like her music, but I just find her catchy, and I think she's brilliant. And honestly, I think they should just keep her in a pandemic for the rest of her life. Because she came out with 3 or 4 albums during the pandemic. So if we can just keep her on lockdown and keep getting that good music,
she's amazing to me. She's a performer. She's at that level, and I think anybody at any type of level, at your level of doing what you do, and seeing what Taylor does at her level, and for me, building my podcast up and building this it makes me happy, and it gives me something to look forward to, and to go through that whole process of learning how to do this and connecting with different people has helped me. What has helped you in your business? Have you looked to other people sometimes, or like,
Oh, absolutely.
who's somebody that you look to that, you know?
Yeah, I've been asked this question before, like, who are mentors to me? And I have to say, the first person who was a close friend of mine and colleague, his name is Dr. David Russo. He's a pain physician up in Hood River, Oregon.
Okay.
And Dave was the one who encouraged me to do pain medicine. He talked me out of going from PM&R into more of a sports medicine doctor.
Okay.
And so I got to give Dave credit for doing that. And Dave's still a colleague, and I call and ask him questions all the time about things, and he calls and asks me questions. So we're more kind of on the same par now. As far as running the business, my dad's been a huge influence for me. Like, whenever I have business questions or need help with something, I can call him and he can give me the answer. So he's probably the second person. And then at a national level in pain medicine, there's a physician by the name of Dr. Timothy Deere, or Tim Deere. He is based out of Charleston, West Virginia.
Oh, wow.
And he's probably the most best written and published pain physician probably in the world. And everybody knows who Tim Deere is. And so I try to aspire to be like Tim and work as hard as I can and try to get a little bit more published and well known for treating patients.
Is it because of like things that he's published that has made an
I think it's the
impact?
research, and then his presence at national meetings, that he's always so kind and nice to people.
Oh, okay.
But he's also very knowledgeable about our field, and so a lot of people reach out to him to get advice. I've reached out to him to get advice. When I see him at conferences, I ask him for advice.
So you're still, even though you know as much as you do, you're still always trying to
Always trying to learn. Always trying to stay at the cutting edge. Always trying to do. I probably in the last year learned 2 or 3 new procedures that I could potentially offer, or that I can't offer patients and have them in our clinic.
Wow.
So I never rest on my laurels. I'm always trying to push the envelope.
Do you think that some pain doctors or pain specialists kind of stay with?
I think there's a lot of people that they get in their comfort level and they don't want to veer outside of it and don't want to push the envelope. And you're exactly right that their training stops at a certain point. But I don't think that's necessarily physicians. I think that happens to people in all fields or specialties.
Very true.
Like some engineers may be like, well, I know enough. I'm not going to learn this. Or the plumber may be like, well, I don't care to learn that new kind of plumbing system. I'm going to stick with this. So I think that happens in all professionals. With all professionals in all fields.
So you're always constantly learning, constantly kind of telling yourself, okay, I learned this procedure, now I can kind of implement it into the practice. Mm-hmm. Now, if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice to the 23-year-old you, like, what would you say to that, to him? What would you say to
easily? I can tell you, I think sometimes, we're always afraid to ask questions, or we don't want to sound dumb or embarrass ourselves in front of others. And I tell you, there is no dumb question. Always ask and always pursue it. Like, that's how you become a better person, and that's how you learn more, is by asking and learning. It's all about experience. So never be ashamed or scared to ask something around others.
That's awesome. If do you have anything that you're afraid of?
Oh, I would tell you, kind of what's driven me in my career is the fear of failure. Nobody wants to fail. Everybody wants to
Have you
succeed. I'm sure I've had my failures at times, but they're minor setbacks for future successes.
So you don't let that thing stop your track in moving forward.
You learn from it, you change it, you move forward, and you do better the next time around.
I mean, that's really, really good advice. When you look at anything in life like business, and you first started your business, how much did you have to go and get like a loan to start?
I got an SBA loan.
Okay.
And actually, I started in the worst economic downturn of our country ever. It was in 2009. So in the middle of that,
everybody knows.
Yeah, I was going to say, fortunately for me at that time, the SBA was easier to get loans because not a lot of people were starting businesses, so they relaxed a lot of the rules. I think the interest rates were really low, so those were all benefits. And then there wasn't startup. I think there's usually for signing the contract and doing that, there's like a startup fee, and I think a lot of that stuff was waived when I did it.
Wow. So you kind of came in.
Yeah, I came in with my business loan. I went to the bank, and had projections, and I think if I remember correctly, it was either I had to have 15 or 20% of my own equity in the company.
Okay.
So I provided receipts of things I'd bought, and they accepted them. And then they gave me a loan, and I probably had that loan paid off within 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So I overpaid on it to get it paid off quicker.
Smart.
I've been, knock on wood, very fortunate. Really haven't had to take out another bank loan since. I mean, I think we all, during the pandemic, took PPP loans and stuff like that, but those were all forgiven as long as you retained your employees, which was what I did. To make sure I qualified for those loans and didn't have to repay them back.
So that's good. That's good. So there's ways to kind of go about it, like the small business loans. When you go to the bank and you deal with banking, or you probably don't personally deal with banking, but whoever does, you probably have to go in that special window, not just a regular window.
Oh, no.
Right?
I go probably through the regular window, and if they think it has to be something done special, they'll put me over at the other window. But I usually don't, it's kind of funny. I think some people want that special attention, right?
Yeah.
I'm not that person. I feel like the one thing that I've been proud of is I've been able to stay humble over the years and not feel like I'm above or better than anyone else around me.
If you had somebody that was in front of you that had trouble with staying humble and with staying grounded, what is it? Your background? Is it the way you were brought up? Is it what was it that helped you stay stay humble and stuff like that?
I think number one, it's my nature. I think I'm just a very laid back, low key guy, and then two, I think it's just kind of the way my parents raised me, that you act like you belong. Don't never make anybody else feel bad, or don't ever put anybody else down. And I'm sure we've all heard that saying that don't on your way up, and when you pass people on the ladder, be careful what you say or how you treat them, because if things don't work out on your way back down the ladder, you may bump into them. And so I've always had the philosophy that I try to pay it forward. I try to treat everybody with kindness, respect, and dignity. And you just never know who you may pass or need their help in the future. And if you were
it's not about flaunting.
No. So if you're unkind or didn't treat them with respect, and 10 years later you need their help, guess what? You're probably not going to get it. So always be kind and respectful of others is how I feel.
I think that's really good the way you put that. So where can people find you if they want to know more about you?
Our website has a physician profile page, and
which will be in the link below.
Yeah, and it's got my CV there. It's got my background information. Our website is nvadvancedpain.com.
Okay.
That's nvadvancedpain.com. There's plenty of information more about me on there.
Awesome. If any of you have questions or comments about this podcast, you can leave it below. I just want to say, Dr. Patterson, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me for this podcast.
Well, thanks, David, for having me. I was excited to do this.
I know you're a busy guy. I know you have a lot going on in your life, but it really does mean the world to me.
No, and that means the world to me that you'd have me. So thank you.
All right. Well, all right. To everyone watching and listening, thank you for clicking on this YouTube video. I really appreciate you. Look forward to the next posting. It'll be me in the gym doing my routine, which the last one has gotten like 3,000 views and it keeps growing.
There you go, bud.
You know, and then I commented on the slap that Will Smith did, and that's gotten like, that made my channel get over 10,000 views within this last 28 days. So, you know.
That's crazy, right? That whole situation.
Nuts.
Yeah.
The guy, I'm like, you know, when you look at somebody like that, you're like, maybe his mind is...
I'm thinking, you know, he had to be under a lot of personal stress in order to crack like that, because that seems like in that kind of environment it just seems uncharacteristic for anybody to do that.
Yeah, and he has a big influence on a lot of people, and you know, when you look at him, and I understand him and his significant other may have their issues, and that's the one thing I brought up in the video was, hey, you know, you didn't have to do that. Why violence? What does that prove by doing that, slapping somebody just because they made a comment about somebody? So. I will see you all next week. Thank you for watching this again. And I will see you guys all later.
Thank you.